Pop tops are the latest things in sports cars as well. Campbell Bolwell from Victoria has been trying to build a classic Australian sports car for years, and with some modest degree of success. This is his latest creation. This is the Bolwell Ikara, and with it, Campbell Bolwell has come full circle. He began some 15 years ago building kit cars, and then progressed to a production line, a small production line, but a production line which produced the fairly well-known Bolwell Nagari, which of course became much too expensive to produce in Australia, so back to kit cars again. Just let me define a kit car. It is in fact a car which you buy the components for and then assemble at home, in your own workshop, in your own garage, in your own backyard if you like. It means that you can spread the assembly time over a period of time and do it very well, and that relieves Campbell Bolwell of the responsibility for the quality of the finished product, because what it looks like when it's completed is pretty much up to you. Now, it's an interesting little car, and it raises some eyebrows in the street, either a great deal of uproarious laughter or a lot of general interest, but whatever, intriguing glances which indicate that a lot of people would like to own it. This is the prototype Bolwell Ikara. That means that it's the first, and for that reason I expect to find some lack of refinement here and there and some things that need modification. But just let me explain the basic configuration of the car first. The engine transmission unit is transverse, as it so commonly is in a lot of passenger cars these days. That is, it sits across the car rather than laterally in that manner. In this case, it's the Volkswagen Golf 1.6 engine, but you could also use Honda Civic, Honda Accord, even Mini if you like, any of those cars which have transverse mounted engines. And that's one of the joys of being able to make a kit car. You can elect to use various different components. It sits very neatly in there, but on looking down and examining, one thing terrifies me straight away. I know it's always a problem to provide linkages for gear shift mechanisms in cars where the shift mechanism is so remote from the gearbox itself. And down there is a sequence of linkages which terrifies me, and what that'll be like, heaven only knows. Like all prototypes, the Bolwell has a certain lack of refinement, especially those prototypes which are handmade. It's understandable, they are, after all, very largely experimental, and therefore I see it as my function to ignore some of that and at least consider the car on its merits, or at least on its potential merits, in the sense that this is what it could be. Now, there we have a problem. And the sort of problem that's not uncommon in prototypes, and particularly in view of those sort of gear shift linkages I've just described to you. Very hard to get gears, and I hope that's fixed. In fact, I'm sure it will be. And also, straight away, this belt is rubbing my neck, which suggests that the mounting point should be slightly lower down. Before getting into detail, let's look at the Bolwell's good points first. The driving position is excellent and the seating is very comfortable, which it needs to be because the suspension is somewhat harsher than your average saloon. This is, after all, a sports car. One nice point is that the suspension is so designed that you can play around with it a bit and build in the settings that you want. The instrumentation is comprehensive, giving you all the information you need, and the Golf engine is, of course, excellent and ideally suited to a car as light as this one. And when you want to stop, there are 4-wheel discs adjustable for front or rear bias. The whole thing creaks and groans a bit, but that's common in a space frame car with body panels which flex easily. Given that the prototype idiosyncrasies will be removed, this car certainly is great fun to drive and complements the sort of driver who enjoys what he's doing. Inevitably, there are some criticisms to be made of all prototype cars, and to justify them is difficult because you know that a lot of what you're going to say is going to change. Nevertheless, it's worth repeating some of those things, and because there are a lot of them, I've made a little list, principally because I think if you intend to buy one of these, even if the intention is to build it and assemble it yourself, some of the components will need to take this sort of configuration, and you need to know. We've already mentioned the gear shift mechanism, and really it is very bad indeed and needs to be almost entirely redesigned. Okay, the handbrake is badly located. It's very high up here, and I see no reason why it could not be relocated down beside the gear shift lever, which would make it easier to get at. And again, I have to repeat, don't think about it as being a parking brake, think about it as being a secondary safety brake that you need to be able to get at. It's important that we should separate the brake and the accelerator pedal. They're too close together, and it's possible to get your foot onto both pedals at the same time, and in fact the same thing applies to the clutch and brake pedal, which are also too close together. We've got to lift the brake pedal to be on the same plane as the accelerator pedal. It is at about 1.5 inches lower, and there's no reason for it to be. The gear shift lever in third and top gear rests against the leg. It needs a slight crank so that it's not touching the leg, a little bit of angle in it, in fact. We've got to relocate or change completely the wiper switch, which hits your knuckles when you're turning the steering wheel. It's an interference that you can well and truly do without. We've got to drop this top seatbelt mount, as I mentioned, because it rubs on your neck. We've got to put in a wider rear view mirror, which will take in the whole of the back window rather than just 2/3 of it. And I'm not sure about this steering wheel. I hope it's just a prototype steering wheel, but it's not a very nice steering wheel, and I wouldn't like to have a car with one as badly made as that. And we need to have a footrest for the left leg when it's not being used on the clutch, because otherwise it just floats about inside the cabin here. Okay, I repeat, probably Bolwell will have looked after all of those things already, but I bring them up so that you know that if you intend to have one of these cars, that's what you need to look for. And now I need to say one thing more. You may well ask what justification there is in this period in history for somebody like Campbell Bolwell to build a car like this. Just because motoring is becoming expensive, there is no reason why it should not also continue to be enjoyable. And there are still plenty of people around who love to drive, who take their driving very seriously, and who would like to be able to buy a sporty style of car without spending $35,000, $40,000 or $50,000. This gives you the opportunity to do that, and I believe it's justified for that reason alone. It's also worthwhile mentioning that up until recently, everybody who wanted a GT style car has had to go for a super powerful V8 of some kind to get the sort of performance they're looking for, and thus 10 or 12 or 13 miles per gallon, whereas this car has the capacity to provide much better economy than that. So far as cost is concerned, it's impossible for me to say. It depends on how you build it. Somewhere between $6,000 and $12,000, and the degree of luxury is almost entirely up to you.